Here we are, our final update on ratings for the Tokyo Olympics. I imagine that NBC celebrated Sunday night when this nightmare was all over. You could argue this was the worst 2 week stretch in the history of NBC. When we look back and think about the 2021 Olympics or the 2020 Olympics, whatever they're calling it, when we look back at this event years from now, we're going to look back and say, what the hell were we thinking? This was the most polarizing and negative Olympics in history. There was very little programming presented that was unifying or heartwarming. They can blame the COVID all they want. It was not the pandemic that tanked the Olympics, it was the media and their constant promotion of athletes that we didn't want to see or support. That was the main reason. Now, there were other contributing factors as well. You would think by now, with over 30 years of experience broadcasting the Olympics, that NBC would know what the hell they were doing. They don't. They broadcast some of the most popular events on Peacock behind a paywall. Now, on one hand, this kind of makes sense, at least from a business perspective. NBC's losing millions and millions of dollars from having to give advertisers make goods because of the low ratings on linear television. But you don't combat a low ratings problem by putting programming, events that could draw ratings behind a paywall. What kind of sense does that make? Take men's basketball, for example. Men's basketball is typically one of the most popular events in the Summer Olympics. Not one game was broadcast on linear television. The media spent much of the last 2 or 3 weeks complaining about the lack of star power in the Olympics. Well, the biggest and most recognizable stars on a global basis were on the men's basketball team, Team USA. And their games are sitting behind a paywall. Now, it'd be one thing if NBC's streaming service, Peacock, was worth a damn. But Peacock is absolutely useless. No streaming service matches ESPN Plus in terms of technical issues. Peacock is a close second, though. NBC also did a terrible job promoting the Olympics. Now, sure, they spent millions letting the world know that the Olympics were going on. That's great and all. Besides the fact that people couldn't find where to watch the events that they really wanted to watch. If someone wanted to watch Gwen Berry embarrass herself, they couldn't find it. Is she on NBCOlympics.com? Is she on Peacock? Is she on NBC? Is she on the USA Network? No one knew. You'd have to hire Mulder and Scully to help you find where to watch the events you wanted to watch. Even with that being the case, if people really, really wanted to watch the Olympics, they would go through the trouble of finding it. The truth is, people just weren't excited about it this year. And they weren't excited about it because the IOC and NBC allowed the Olympics to become politicized. Even as disastrous as the Olympics were for NBC, they are still trying to spin this negative into something positive. I guess executives at NBC are glass half full kind of people. Now, me, on the other hand, I'm a realist. If the glass is half full, to me that means it's missing 50% of its water. Just like NBC is missing 50% of its audience for the Olympics. The closing ceremonies were Sunday night. It was a pre-recorded disaster. The closing ceremony was hosted by Johnny Weir, who looked like he walked straight out of a 70s gay bathhouse in Tokyo, walked across the street, and hosted the closing ceremonies for the Olympics. When you think about it, I guess it was appropriate. The Tokyo Olympics were essentially a celebration of all things woke. So why not have Johnny Weir show young children all over the world that it's okay for a man to dress like a 70s hooker? Unsurprisingly, ratings for the closing ceremony were record lows. I guess America doesn't like men who want to be women, or women who want to be men, or they, them pronoun people who pretend to be genderless, non binary. Perhaps NBC will present us with figure skating cats in the Winter Olympics here in a few months. Non binary cats, of course. We're going to make sure to have them neutered before they head over to Beijing. I told you guys a few days ago that we were going to see the Olympics draw under 10 million viewers at some point over the weekend. Well, it happened Sunday night. Only 8.8 million people tuned in to watch the closing ceremony. Like I said a second ago, NBC's doing their best to spin this into a positive. The media is giving them the assist. We were the #1 network in prime time the last 17 days. The Olympics were the second most watched event of the year behind the NFL. We dominated Sunday night with the closing ceremonies. You sure did, NBC. Damn, you really dominated that competition. I'm sure it was tough competition too. I mean, so many Americans consider Love Island to be appointment television. I can't believe you stole Big Brother's audience. Oh, and I can't forget Major League Baseball. You had that huge game Sunday night when, no one knows who played in Major League Baseball on primetime Sunday night because very few people care about Major League Baseball in August. The biggest story in baseball over the weekend was the fake racism the media made up in Colorado. NBC is trying to say that the Olympics were a resounding success because they broke streaming records for Peacock. Now, we have busted through this myth before, might as well bust it again. Peacock did not launch until April of 2020. Of course, NBC set streaming records with the Olympics on Peacock. They went from 0 to a few million. If one person had watched the Olympics on Peacock, ratings would have increased by 100%. It is a stupid comparison, but that's what the media does. They are masters at spin. The truth is, the streaming audience didn't come close to making up for the audience that NBC lost on linear television. With streaming numbers included, the Olympics averaged 15.5 million people on a nightly basis. That is a decline of over 11 million people from 2016. I don't think NBC eclipsed 20 million viewers once with the Olympics the past 2 weeks. They averaged over 26 million every day just 5 years ago. Where did all those people go? Oh, they must be watching Netflix. That might be true, because they damn sure weren't watching the Olympics. NBC executives are claiming that the Olympics were still very, very profitable. That's probably true. Question is, will they remain profitable going forward? NBC has paid billions of dollars to broadcast the Olympics through 2032. When the IOC made the decision to relax its rules on political protesting for the Tokyo Olympics, and the media promoted anti-American athletes, it ruined the image of the Olympics. Look at the NBA. The NBA had record low ratings for the regular season this year. Ratings for the playoffs were near record lows. The NBA was mostly apolitical all year. They tried to get back to basketball. People did not forget the sins of last summer. The NBA Finals ended in October. 2 months later, the regular season starting back up. It wasn't enough time for people to forget about the league going woke. It's the same thing with the Olympics. The Winter Olympics begin early February, only 5.5 months away. People are not going to forget everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks in just 5 months. And even if they did, do you really think the media is not going to promote the anti-American athletes involved in the Winter Olympics? This agenda is not going away. I was talking to one of my friends yesterday. We were talking about the surge in growth of my channel, the channel's experience over the past couple of weeks with the Olympics. And he asked me what I was going to do now. What are you going to do going forward that the woke politics is over with the Olympics ending? I kind of laughed for a second, and then I told him, dude, this is not over. I said the growth of the channel will slow down a little bit. It's not realistic for a channel this size to gain 1,000 new subscribers every day, but the growth opportunities will be there. And the agenda is not going away. The NFL is back and is woker than ever. Look at what's happened in just the last 48 hours in sports. The damn woke is everywhere. You can't keep up with it. Did you guys see what's going on in Virginia? Remember last week when we were talking about the transgender athletes being allowed to compete in the Olympics? And I said they are trying to normalize this behavior so they can promote this agenda in schools. Remember that? Yesterday in Virginia, parents were protesting outside of the school board because the board was voting to allow children to choose which gender they identify with. They're forcing teachers to use proper pronouns with children and allowing the kids to not only choose their proper pronouns, but also choose which bathroom they use. This is what I was talking about. These freaks are using sports to promote their agenda because athletes and celebrities have more influence than 95% of your politicians. Anyway, let me know what you think. Did you watch the closing ceremony Sunday night with the Olympics? Do you think the Winter Olympics will be as political, or will they tone it down since the ratings for the Summer Olympics were so low? Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. The best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, kc_btl84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.